Hey tamers and trainers, it's me, ChillBro, for the follow-up video to the one I premiered last week, making the comparison between Temtem and Pokemon Generation 8. In that video, I look at how Temtem is similar to, worse off for than, and seemingly superior to Generation 8 Pokemon. First of all, I need to start this video with an apology. To everyone who watched my last video, I truly appreciate it. I've been greatly humbled by the response and criticisms to it, and I'm here to be accountable. For those of you who watched it and find it personally offensive regarding the point I make in the Troubles section regarding Temtem's inclusion of they/them pronouns, I deeply and sincerely offer an apology. It's never my intention to single out any one person or any group of individuals to make any one person feel as they're alone, misunderstood, unwanted, unloved, disrespected, of less worth than others, or unworthy of recognition. To anyone who I have made feel this way, I'm eternally sorry, and I promise you and everyone else that I will constantly strive to always do better regarding my writing and the presentation of my content on this channel. In the pursuit of making my writing more interesting and alliterative, I made an exceptionally poor choice in words, and I apologize for doing so. I reworked the script for the original video a handful of times before recording, and removed a very important supportive point, as I think bringing up preferred pronoun selection and its effect on gameplay is one of the least important and most tangential points that I made about the trouble Temtem was facing before its early access launch. I screwed up. What I needed to say and should have said is, Temtem includes the options for players to customize their in-game character using their preferred pronoun. At this time, it unfortunately doesn't appear to do much to change the dialogue or gameplay. I feel that for Crema, other areas of the game should have priority, like battle payout balancing and the in-game economy. The pursuit of making a fun and rewarding game for players should be the #1 priority for any game developer on every project. These personalization options are a very nice touch, though. In the game's current state, it doesn't appear to offer much other than the initial choice. Anyone, again, to anyone I offended or upset, I'm truly sorry. It was the furthest thing from my intentions, and I hope this is able to clarify my poor communication in the first video on that point. If you've made it this far, thank you so very incredibly much for hearing me out and giving me the opportunity to be accountable. Now that the game has been out for a week in early access, I'd like to follow up on some of the additional points from my initial video on Temtem. I've been keeping my eyes and ears keenly tuned to the Temtem community and new players' perceptions of the game thus far. As clearly, I've demonstrated an interest in Temtem, the future of creature collecting genre in general, and honestly, I'd like to see Temtem do the absolute best that it can. So I've been paying a lot of attention and actively researching more of the controversial points that I had initially made. The dialogue. Okay, so this one caught me a little bit off guard. Initially, I said for both Gen 8 Pokemon and Temtem, there's a lot of filler dialogue. textual diarrhea, as I referred to it in my first video. A commenter pointed out that the dialogue in Temtem is for them an exciting new way to express their character in-game. I hadn't thought of this or heard of it brought up as a point yet, and I have to say this is an absolutely good thing for those who want it. I posit it would be better and more engaging if further expanded upon by using an alignment system, which the dialogue would have direct impact on. Scaling the player character from evil to neutral to good, though probably not using those same terms, as I'm using them here for illustrative purposes only. Something I hadn't noticed regarding the dialogue until I watched many more people play Temtem was the actual content of the dialogue itself, as I was too busy skipping through it in an attempt to experience as much of the game's content in the campaign before the end of the stress test. The content of Temtem's dialogue is quite mature for a creature collecting game that markets itself as inspired by Pokemon. It leaves me questioning who the intended audience for Temtem is. Obviously, one audience is Pokemon players in general, and the audience for Pokemon is vast, spanning generations, though itself as a brand is marketed primarily towards younger audiences, and the franchise strives to ensure their games check the list to secure the everything rating from the ESRB and its international analogs. Temtem, on the other hand, due to it being an MMO, has a bit more leeway in what they can put in their game, as the rating will reflect it being an MMO and carry the online interactions not rated by the ESRB disclaimer. That being said, Temtem would earn at the very least a teen rating for mild suggestive themes, such as Professor Constantinos' wild story about how he obtained one of the starter Temtem for the player to choose from. The dialogue in the opening minutes of the game allude to violence, suggesting a pub brawl and alcohol use. The professor mildly gloats about his drunken escapades. The dialogue also talks down to and berates the player on many occasions. NPCs in the game will take jabs at the player for their appearance, lack of knowledge or experience regarding the game and its world or mechanics, and insult players by calling them names such as plebeians. There's also dialogue that insults all players in blanket statements, like this NPC on the first route telling players how dumb they and others are for attempting to explore their surroundings, calling them a bunch of noobs. Double battles. Just a quick point for this one. Unless you're playing Temtem co-op, the double battles are obnoxious. I don't feel my opinion changing on this one, and I still feel the campaign would be an infinitely better experience when played exclusively in co-op mode. Battle payout balance and required sustain not being affordable. If you've played the game or watched anyone play it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In my initial analysis, I said that during the first dojo, I knew I would faint and have to go back to a Temporium, and because of this, I stopped playing. I've got a lot of comments telling me to get good, and that I'm too dumb to understand the mechanics and nuance of the battle system and type matchups. Some players are getting soft-locked in progression at the first dojo because they don't have enough in-game currency to buy sustain items for their fight with the dojo leader, Sophia. The sad reality is, the most effective tactic available for saving in-game currency and the time is to let your squad get wiped. The player loses less money from fainting than they would have to spend to keep their squad sustained while working through the game's never-ending gauntlet of tamers. The player can optimize their time this way rather than backtracking to a Temporium or a healing station and then returning to the spot they were before requiring healing. The Temessence file barely alleviates the pressure of this. Just go and watch some Nuzlockes of Temtem and tell me it's fair or even possible at this point with what the early game gives to new players. Some intrepid tamers will figure it out maybe, but I'm not sure Temtem accommodates this playstyle, especially considering if following the traditional rules of a Nuzlocke, you can never win or progress past the professor's lab, as the first battle is scripted for your Temtem to faint. Overpromising co-op features by omission and obfuscation. For a game that touts a full co-op campaign mode as its third selling point, Temtem woefully underdelivered at its early access launch. They didn't even think to add a feature for adding Steam friends in-game for the early access alpha, until there was outcry for it that could no longer be ignored. Broken or not, it should have been there, as it's one of the main reasons people are buying your game. Its omission was suspect. Co-op is kind of here now, but there are desync issues when you play, and sometimes flags for quests don't set for the tamer who is not the group leader, leading to soft lock progression bugs. With the game having been out this long in alpha and backers playtesting it prior to early access, this sort of thing makes it look as if the co-op system has always been half-baked and never got the attention it deserved since its inception. My original point about the available content featuring co-op gameplay prior to the early access release being limited, and the lack of results for facts or support documents on how to make it work, still holds water. Information to use a main feature of the game should have been readily available, offered, and easy to find. Microtransactions in the in-game economy. In the first video, I brought up the omen of microtransactions for in-game currency, and this has been very contentious given the evidence readily available. A simple Google search asking, "Will Temtem have microtransactions?" or something similar yields results of the developer saying the game will have microtransactions, but not in a capacity that could be considered pay to win. Merely cosmetic is what they've officially said. Between the stress test version build I played and the alpha version available on early access day, prices on cosmetic items rose on average 10 times. A cosmetic item for your tamer was between 1,600 to 2,300 Paxsun in the stress test alpha. While watching streamers and creators reach Brickell Del Mar for the first time, I noticed the ones who entered the cosmetic item shop checked the prices, only to be blown away to see the lowest price for a clothing item being just under 18,000 Paxsun. Then in a patch over the early access's first weekend, Crema increased the prices for breeding items by 3.5 to 5 times the previous patch, blocking casual players out of competitive battling. Casual players don't have hundreds of hours to spend in-game farming Paxsun using the free Tem system to then try and breed their perfect Tem. This game isn't for casuals, has been the counter-argument. Okay, fine. Say goodbye to 80% of your player base. This isn't a gotcha or I told you so. This is a serious issue with the game's current economy and Crema's lack of specificity on how microtransactions will be implemented into Temtem going forward. I'm gonna wrap things up as quickly as possible now, as I don't wish to draw this out any longer than it needs to be. Players of Temtem can now judge for themselves how Crema handles things going forward, as they have an offering of the actual product and can experience it firsthand. Thank you for making a game that excites so many people and inspires their wonder, creativity, and imagination, Crema. Please be true to them. Crema, you bashful group of monkeys making truly incredible things happen. I know you can make this work, and I can see that you're capable of so much. I truly support this game, and I want to see your studio and Temtem succeed. You have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to hit a grand slam in front of a standing room-only stadium, packed to support you. And I'm certain we'll continue to support you through thick and thin. And you absolutely have the skills to do it. Your work is evidence of that. I'm anxiously awaiting the full release of Temtem, and I will continue to support creators who support you. Until that time, though, I'll be removing myself from the community and conversations surrounding the game. Thank you all for your time and consideration. And until next time, stay pretty.